Let me start off, and I think it's important that you know who we have here and perhaps a bit of something about their families very briefly. So we've got Joster from Malawi, we've got Emmanuel from Uganda. Joster, would you begin very briefly by giving us a 30-second snapshot into your family?
I'm Joster Jumbe, as Pastor Dave has introduced me.
Okay, I think use that one.
Yes, I am Joster Jumbe, as it has been introduced by Pastor David Holdt. I'm married. My wife is Jane. I've got 3 children. The firstborn is Francis Jumbe. He's 24 years old. The second-born is Bright Jumbe. He's 22 years old. Has just finished his study of bachelor's degree in economics. My daughter is 20. Is Elizabeth Jumbe. Is about also to finish her study in nursing this year.
Thank you. I'm not sure how well your microphone's going to work.
Okay, let me. Yeah, Emmanuel, like it is being said, and I come from Uganda. I'm married to Mabel. We've been married for 24 years. It will be 24 years come May 12th. And I have 3 children. We have 3 children. Joel, who is 23. Erin, who is 20. And Elizabeth is 16. Yeah.
Well, thank you both, and it is our prayer that the Lord will keep them as He has kept you to bring you here and watch over them. So how are we going to work this is that I'm going to be asking questions that are specific to Joster. I know Joster fairly well as I've gotten to spend some time with him over the last year, but Gerald, there is, in my mind, and he will probably turn away, but there's a legend over there. And he frowns and he'll probably beat me with a few words afterwards. But Gerald represents to me the kind of trainer that EPW needs. And I'll tell you why. Because he's kept on going back again and again and again. And so you're an example to me. But as a result of that going back to Uganda again and again and again, you've developed the most amazing relationship with the Ugandan brothers. So you get to ask the Uganda questions. So let's hand over to you, brother.
Thank you. Yes, Emmanuel and I have known each other for nearly 20 years, so it's developed a very strong bond of friendship and fellowship in the gospel and in the training ministry. And I thought it'd be good if Emmanuel could tell you just a little bit about his faith journey, where it started and how it's progressed, and then also about the church that he's pastor of, in a town called Kabale, which is in southwest Uganda. So could you do with those 2 things for us, Emma, please?
Okay.
Oh, incidentally, there are lots of Emmanuels in Uganda. Virtually everybody is Emmanuel. And so I abbreviate them to Emma 1, Emma 2, Emma 3, Emma 4. This is Emma 1.
Emma 1, okay. Thank you very much, Gerald. Yeah, like I came to faith when I was 19 years of age. I was raised up in a Roman Catholic church, not so much church going. My father, I remember when he still lived, he didn't go to church. My mother would go to church once in a while, but I went to school, primary and secondary, they would take me to Roman Catholic school. So somehow I got religious in the Catholic faith. But when I was 19, a friend visited us home and he shared with us the truth that we need to know God, we need to know Christ beyond Mass and beyond the rituals of the Catholic faith. We didn't accept there and then, but he left us a book, How to Be Born Again. And I remember 2 months later, as I read through the book, I really felt a strong conviction that I needed to have a stronger relationship with Jesus Christ. So in the boarding school where I went, I knew two young men, my classmates, who were saved. That's the way. And one day I went to them and I said, I want to confess Jesus Christ as my Savior and Lord. And that's how I came to faith. And then 5 years later, as I was doing my college education in business studies, the church group I was involved with was planting a new church, where I live now in Kabale. And so as I was at college, I was also involved in the discipling and the evangelizing around town. And that's how I ended up in pastoral ministry. Much as earlier as I came to faith, I really felt a strong conviction that I need to be teaching God's word. So that's how I came to pastoral ministry. I went to a Bible school later on, and then the rest came in as we went along. Yeah.
And Kabale Bible Church?
Kabale Bible Church. Now, Kabale Bible Church is because the church that I was involved in, that was 1993 when we planted that, and I kept on being involved there. But then once in a while I would go away to plant a church, maybe 30 kilometers away, 15 kilometers away. But then in 2013 we took this small group of believers from the church where I was to plant it in another part of the town, and that's where I have been since 2013. And it's unique in a way. I don't know whether that will come later, because by that time when I got to plant Kabale Bible Church, I'd already gotten the conviction that the faithful way of preaching God's word is by preaching Christ-centered expository messages. And so that has been the foundation of Kabale Bible Church from the time we started it in 2013.
And when we first met, you were basically a student, weren't you, within our training course?
Yes, yeah.
But now you have a much more important role.
Yeah.
But what was the significance of those early days of coming along to the training?
Yeah, I first met the team from UK, the team of pastors. It was led by Gerald then in 2007. And from the very first time I met that first conference, which we had in January 2007, two things were a turning point. It was like if there is being born a third time, it was like being born a third time, because two ideas that they shared that came from the training. One of them was that the Bible, the story of the Bible is a single story. The message of the Bible is a single story from Genesis to Revelation, and it's about the Lord Jesus Christ. Luke chapter 24 and verse 25 to 27, they start, and it was a turning point, because from that time on, it's true, I had been to our group, to our Bible school, the denomination of the church to which I belong, and I loved preaching and teaching, but there are very many things that could not connect even about God's grace, and then how is one saved by the grace of God alone, and then what do I need to do? There was a mix-up, grace and works, but it's like when those two ideas, they were like something that really changed my mind. And it's okay, the Bible is one story, and if I'm going to preach it faithfully, it must be centered on Christ. So by the time I go to Kabale Bible Church, I had already been transformed in the way I look and preach the Bible, but more so, I had understood now what it means to have an assurance of salvation, because really the single story, the Bible has a single story, making it clear this is about Jesus Christ. I even don't know, most of the time when I would preach before that, it would be like moralistic, tell the story, try to make from one point to another, tell people what they should do. But really, I think when I need to say there that, yes, that was my turning point, 2007. And so, from on, every time they would come, I would be ready to devour, to really devour into what was being taught. And immediately, I remember I began preaching from the Bible, and I would share messages for their mentoring. So, okay, did I get the main point idea properly here, the main idea properly? What about the preaching aim and the action? Such that I kept on sharing with the team that used to come. It used to be Gerald, Simon, and Hugh. And many times, it was not only the one-week conference at Kabale, but also the relationship we shared along. And that took 5-6 years to go through the series, the series of the conference that we are doing then under Project Timothy. And after that, because I was not only eating in and also preaching, but I was also teaching others. So we went to Kasese. Kasese is another part of the town. And then so that time I was teaching alongside Gerald in Kasese. From there, we went many other places of Uganda. Right now, I should say, like we've been all over with Gerald, and most of the time after COVID, I am more now in charge, because during COVID, the facilitators from UK wouldn't be able to come along, and most of the time I did the training. And so I don't know whether that's the journey. Okay.
Now, Joster over here is not a pastor, but he is the principal of a Bible college in Zomba in Malawi. Joster, tell us about your role, firstly as the principal of the Bible college, and how that role accommodates your role as EPW hub coordinator there.
Yeah, it is indeed that I'm the principal for Reformed Theological College in Zomba, Malawi. My role as a principal has also helped me a lot in the roles of EPW. Because after being introduced to EPW by Dr. Zag, is a British national but living in the United States of America, and is the president of Miss International Seminary. I started communicating with different individuals in the EPW, especially Mr. Mike Taylor. I was introduced to him by Pastor Gordon Oram. So I used to receive books, and I was equipping the pastors of Reformed Theological College. Reformed Theological College belongs to the Reformed Presbyterian Church of Malawi. So I had been equipping them, and also we are also equipping the students of Miami International Seminary, who by then also I was appointed as the Meets Africa Registrar. So it made me very active as I was traveling from one place to the other in Africa, introducing Meets International Seminary educational programs, and also serving as the principal in Zomba. Then after working with Mr. Mike Taylor also introduced me to other members of the management of EPW, like Christopher Emberton. I think he was introduced to me by Mike Taylor, and Adrian, James Starman, later on, like David Holdt here. I was also introduced to Pastor Gerald and Simon Pese. So the list of names just go on expanding, because there are so many people now in the EPW management. So that's how these two organizations have married each other, helping me, supporting the members of the pastors of Reformed Presbyterian Church of Malawi, and also supporting students of Miami International Seminary. Miami International Seminary, it's a big institution because we have got centers in Malawi, Zambia, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Mozambique. I've been all over these countries introducing then it was CBW, and as well as the Miss International Seminary.
Thank you, Joster. There is a story I want you to tell in a moment, but a little bit of the background. Before we started working with Joster, we were working with some American missionaries in Malawi who'd helped us to distribute around 50,000 books in Chichewa. However, what happened was those American missionaries returned to the United States, and it was then that Julian Zug introduced us to Joster. Joster has since then translated further books into Chichewa, and since then the Lord has really used him to distribute a further 60,000 books, Chichewa books. So 110,000 books altogether in Chichewa, if my maths is correct, across the board. Now, one of those books, and this is the story I want Joster to tell, one of those books landed in the hands of a Muslim man called Victor, who at the time was on death row in a prison in Malawi. Can you tell us that story?
It is a very interesting story because we have translated various sermons for Charles Haddon Spurgeon, for Martin Luther, and for John Calvin. So one of our leaders for Miss International Seminary is also involved with the prison ministry. So he went to Chichiri prison in the city of Blantyre, where he shared these sermons to the prisoners. So one of the prisoners, by the name, not Victor, but Sanudi Bonongwe, just a collection, is the son of a Muslim imam. So accidentally, he killed her mother. Then he was arrested, was put into prison, waiting for the death sentence. Because in Malawi, even though the death sentence is outlawed, but still people are given that sentence because the community or the people themselves did not approve. Then as he was waiting for the death sentence, he read one of Spurgeon's sermons that explains the outcome of a sinner when he dies without repenting. So that affected him very much. So he started calling me while he was in the prison to meet him. He called me again and again. Then later on, after going through his case, it was changed now to manslaughter. Then he was acquitted from the prison. He was released from the prison. After being released from prison, he kept on calling me almost each and every day to meet him. Then I left to his home. It's about 80 kilometers from where I stay. I met him with some of his relatives. We discussed a lot, and then I took him to our office, who later on, I think, Mr. James Salman and Mr. Clay met him. So he keeps on explaining how that ceremony touched him. That after reading the ceremony, he was crying the whole day. Until we started now teaching him the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ, how he forgives the sinners like him and ourselves. Because we encouraged him that we are not different from him. We are all sinners. We all deserve eternal punishment. The fact that he killed her mother accidentally doesn't mean that he cannot be forgiven. So after that, I think he started now to have peace in his mind, and he is now an active follower of Jesus Christ. And he keeps on giving the testimony how he was saved while in prison after reading the sermon of Charles Haddon Spurgeon. And we can say that Charles Haddon Spurgeon is still preaching in Malawi silently. John Calvin, Martin Luther, they are preaching in Malawi silently because we believe that a book is a silent preacher. So that's how a son of a Muslim imam got saved after reading the translated sermon of John Calvin, also the translated of Charles Haddon Spurgeon.
Amen. It's wonderful, Joster. Thank you. Gerald.
As well as being the pastor of Kabali Bible Church, Emmanuel has been very involved in the training work that continues, training in various places alongside those who've gone out from the UK. But increasingly now, he takes a lead role as our coordinating trainer in Uganda. And linked with that, he's also establishing a book hub in Uganda so that the books that are being sent out from what was CBW, now EPW, can get into the hands of those who will make good use of them. But one of the initiatives that we've been able to develop alongside Emmanuel is a Train the Trainers program, so that pastors in Uganda who have been through our training can then be encouraged to get involved in training others. And Emmanuel has been developing that with us in Uganda. And so I thought it would be helpful to you for you to hear how he feels that's impacted the pastors who come along, and through them is impacting the church in Uganda. So could you share a little bit about that for us, Emmanuel, please?
Yes, okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like he mentioned, begin 22, 23, Simon per se, together with Gerald, we started working on trying to put together a training of trainers group in Uganda. So what we did was to see those who were potential, not only able, but interested in the good respect of the training that we had given them at the different centers where we had gone through the 6-step PTI curriculum. So we would select 3 from a center, but normally those who had gone through the 6 steps, and we brought the 2023 is when we had the first T3, Train the Trainer, and the Pastor Gerald together with Simon per se, they were there. And what was exciting from that training that we had the 27 participants, 23 were from within Uganda, and then we had others coming from the nearby country, some to be exposed to the curriculum, like Brother Joster from the book ministry within Malawi and Mozambique, but he came over to be exposed to the PTI curriculum, the training curriculum. We had 2 others from Tanzania, and we had 1 from Cameroon. And so after, as we followed, like what I would say, what is exciting and very encouraging about it is that from the 27 we had, 12 are actively involved in managing, in leading, in mobilizing and teaching at other training centers as I give them the oversight and the support that comes through EPW UK. And so we have 12 that are actively involved in 4 different centers, 1 from Western Uganda. We have 1 around Kampala. Kampala is the center of our capital city. And then we have 1 in Tororo, close to the Kenyan border. And so it's exciting to see how there are more people training, and running, the training is running on, well, multiplying, and now we are seeking of how do we consolidate that further and further.
And one of those centres is Ibanda, and these guys are not particularly well educated, they're rural pastors, but what have you been able to do to particularly help them, that they might be able to access the materials?
Okay, yeah, the places now like that I've mentioned, that are the conferences that are being taught and led by the trainer participants, there would be contacts of the participants we have trained in the TTT. So the places they have taken us to, many of them do not have the training only, not only that they don't have, miss the training only, but also the formal education is very basic. So when we went to Ibanda, it was obvious that we could not communicate in the English language. So it created a very good need. And in the beginning, when it was like, okay, how are we going to manage that? But then I remembered, this is the purpose of EPW, to reach as many and those who may not be able to access good education. So we started the translation. So what we are doing with Ivanda and another nearby place which we do as a preachers group is that we are translating the teaching workbook into the local language, the vernacular. Our vernacular is called the Runyankole Ruchiga. And not only happening there, but also around the Kampala, there is a place we go, and one of the trainers is called David, is doing the translation of the workbook into the Luganda. So because when we go to those people, we can't communicate to them in the English languages, and it's exciting. The last training we had in Ivanda, it's like the real high point of the training. When we would ask, what do you like, was the translation, because they were now able to read the material in their own language, and we have plans to expand on that more and more, that the people can access these good materials in their own language.
One of the things that Joster very clearly places high value on is getting books and literature out. And Joster, therefore, does a lot of traveling to do so. Joster, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the distribution of books from our Malawi hub, how you go about doing that, and where you take those books to.
Yeah, having translated many EPW books into Chichewa. First of all, let me explain the background of Chichewa language. Chichewa language is like a lingua franca, or a language that is spoken in Malawi, Zambia, and Mozambique. So when we started translating, many pastors from these countries started showing interest and inviting us to set up different centers. And we travel from Malawi up to Beira, that is on the coast of Indian Ocean. From Malawi to Beira, it takes us, I can say 2 days because of some delays at the border. So 2 and 4, we cover almost 2,000 kilometers. We also travel to Zambia. We reach up to Lusaka, which is also over 1,000 kilometers. 2 and 4 is 2,000 kilometers. Apart from that, we also travel within Malawi because Malawi Chichewa is a national language. And in addition to this, I want to encourage you to work or to support very much the translation work, because it is this translation work that has made EPW to expand almost every place. I've taken this Bible deliberately because we have got 2 types of pastors. Those who are not able, I can say those with formal theological education. The first group of pastors, they have got limited ability to read. And those who have got limited ability to read, they take a Bible like this one, then they open a book of the Bible, and then they put either a stick or a paper so that they should not forget. So when they reach the pulpit, then they just make sure that they haven't missed the page and read, just concentrate on that particular passage because they don't have good ability to read. So the moment the stick or the paper has fallen, then the whole Solomon is also confused. So sometimes they just keep on telling false stories because the passage which they wanted to preach, they cannot manage to open it. They have got a little ability to read and write. And amidst this, we have got also those, of course, they don't have the formal theological education, but they are able to read and write. Those ones, it's not a big issue because we teach them in their vernacular language, Chinyanja. So that's how things are happening. So, and I want to thank EPW after seeing the challenges which I used to have, because sometimes I was using an old car, which used to make me sometimes sleeping on the road 3 days when it broke down. So upon seeing that, EPW helped me with funds, whereby we bought a very strong car, Toyota Land Cruiser Prado. And it's very efficient, very strong car. I want to thank you once again for this great gift. It is helping us to work comfortably in Malawi. Unlike in the past when it was always a great problem. Each and every trip, I could sleep on the road. And sometimes we used just to leave the car and go back to look for money so that we can service it. It was terrible.
I should just say, because the make and brand and model of the vehicle might make you think, my word, these guys have more money than they know what to do with it. This Toyota Land Cruiser Prado is a 21-year-old car, which just happens to be very strong. What kind of precipitated us getting that vehicle is when Richard and I visited in Malawi last March. Joster collected us from the airport about 80 kilometers away from Zomba, and the moment we arrived in Zomba, and we were there for 5 days, the moment we arrived in Zomba, we just pulled into the driveway of where we'd be staying, and that was it. The car stopped. It wasn't going anywhere. Thankfully, the mechanic was literally, and this is not an exaggeration, across the road. But in the space of 5 days, that car broke down 3 times. And we just thought, if this man is going to go to Mozambique and Zambia and all the way up Malawi, he needs something else. And God has wonderfully provided, and that car continues to be jam-packed full of books, and Joster continues to drive thousands of kilometers. Gerald.
I hope that Emmanuel's ears were closed to that section. Because he travels the length and breadth of Uganda on the local coaches. And he puts up with it really well. I've travelled on them, and it's an experience not to be repeated, I have to say. Emma, just one other thing that it would be good for folks to know about. In Uganda, there are others doing similar work to us, but they're doing it at different levels and with different people. But we're networking with them, partnering with them, because there are times when we can actually work together. And I felt it would be helpful to you to know that that's the case, and the way in which Emmanuel is developing some of those partnerships as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, partnership and networking in Uganda is very important. Yeah, it was mentioned during the presentation of the historical background. We have a lot of false teaching. It's really alarming and disgusting, the false teaching that happens, and it just spreads out like a bushfire. But and so sometimes, even as you do gospel ministry, sometimes you get that time of feeling not really disappointed, but like frustrated. What are we doing? Because it's what we try to do in a local church or with a few pastors feels like a drop, just a little drop in the ocean. So networking, or we're coming alongside other ministries that are like-minded, and we think as we consolidate our effort and resources, we can do more, is been very encouraging also. Like one of the ministries that works and we do the same things is called Living Word Uganda. And the Living Word Uganda, when they started in around 2013, 2014, their concentration mainly was to work with the university students. When the students go to university, they would be there for 3, 4, 5 years. So yeah, Living Word Uganda prepared sort of a curriculum that they can teach them in Bible handling. And how do we partner with them? Because after some time they realized, yes, they are working with the students, but these students go back to churches where pastors are not handling the Bible well, or some of them deliberately to deceive others because of their abuse. So they started working with also pastors. So as we work together with Living Word, they have come to our conferences. When they arrange their conferences, some of our pastors who are able to afford to be there. They will be there such that we continue to build our capacity in Bible handling. And so right now, we have 2 places where we are doing conferences, because Living Word, they also have trainers, and the materials, the principles and the goals are the same. So like we do with them a conference of pastors in Moroto, that's Karamoja in northeastern Uganda. And so Living Word is one of those very, very helpful partnership which we are doing as we partner with them, where we supplement them, we complement what they are doing, and they do the same with us. The other one is the Pastor Bosco. Pastor Bosco is also passionate about good Bible handling and planting good city churches within Uganda, and so he's been coming. Many times I would teach with him, even when some of the UK team are not able to, before we put up together the TT team. So we have those, and then others, but mainly those key, they are very much encouraging to us as we try to multiply and consolidate Bible handling ministry in Uganda.
Pastor Bosco Bakira is married to an English girl. They have a family. They live in Sengi, which is just north of Kampala. They planted a church there, and they're doing a great work, which we're really pleased to partner with and use Bosco's skills to help us in the work that we're doing as well.
Yeah.
So the work in Malawi with EPW was really, it began around book distribution, but that's become a little bit more. Richard and I spent a week or 5 days, a week and a half ago in Dubai at the Global Resources and Training Initiative, which was a coming together of primarily publishing ministries from the majority world to talk about ways of collaboration. But in and amongst those was also those who'd come to do, who are involved in training initiatives. And it was very interesting how time and time again the testimony was how books or publishing served as the funnel through which teaching occurred. And that's exactly what has happened in Malawi. So in September last year, we initiated our first training in Zomba in Malawi, and in 2 weeks' time, I'll be back with Joster there doing our second module of training. But Joster, I wonder if you can share, by way of testimony, the impact that that first step of training had on the pastors in Malawi.
The first step of training of EPW in Malawi was very successful, and is still very successful because pastors are still giving their testimonies. Having most of the pastors who are not well educated and going and studying in their vernacular language, it's one of the greatest opportunities, because most of the theological institutions in Malawi, they offer their training in English. And because we are reaching out to these pastors in their vernacular language, that is why it is very successful. And with the influx of health, wealth, prosperity gospel in Malawi, these pastors are now able to learn the sound doctrines from the Bible. That's why it has become a great blessing. And most of them have been confessing of doing wrong to their followers, whereby they have been offering to them false gospel. Because as I've said, that most of these are not educated. They have never attended any formal education. What was happening, whenever they go to the funeral ceremony, they could listen attentively and keep that in their mind. And whenever they go to church, they were just repeating what that they heard from somebody preaching at the funeral ceremony. Wherever they forgot, they could put anything they want, so that probably the ceremony should be longer enough. So it was very confusing. So this time, because of the training that is being done in their mother tongue, They are able to follow, they are able to start, and we translated the manual, and they are still using those manuals. That is why we have even reached a point of controlling the number, because whenever Pastor Dave was there were about 80-something. Now we want them to be around 40, so that we should be able to handle them properly. And without controlling, probably they can even go over to 200. So the rest of others will be done by myself locally, while Dave is back from teaching them in Malawi. So in brief, that's it.
I think what Joster has highlighted there is so very important, and that is the transference of truth through the mother tongue. An old Zulu gentleman once said to my father, he said, "You know, Pastor, when you speak to us in your language, you speak to our heads. But when you speak to us in our language, you speak to our hearts." Mm-hmm. And God's word is something we want to get into people's hearts. So all the training is done by way of a translator. I should just let you know, Joster, you're not aware of this, but just this week we initiated the translation or the narration of preachers and teachers into Chichewa. And so that's being done using very advanced AI technology. So that'll be the first of a number of our books which we will have translated so these men can listen to this material. Now, I do want to give an opportunity, maybe 5 minutes or so, for you to ask any questions you may have. But before I get there, perhaps there's a last question. And I know you won't have gone through all your questions, but perhaps there's one that you just want to nail down.
Well, the only other thing that I really felt it would be helpful to folks, you've heard an awful lot today already. It's a lot to take in and to take away. But maybe just 2, 3 important prayer points that you feel you'd like people to take away on their hearts, to pray for you, and that may well apply to the situation for Joster in Malawi as well.
Okay. Yeah, one of the prayer points I would request us to keep in prayer is that as we do the training, we also need the churches that are modeling, not for the sake of modeling, but they realize to modeling what is being taught, like the Christ-centered sequential expository preaching. So pray that the TT participants that I work with will be able to share a relationship that brings them to effectiveness in that, and also to have the time to be able to walk alongside them in a way of coaching. Those who really want to be there, because when we teach people, there are those who may not want to change, but at least those we really, I pray that we'll get model churches where sequential Christ-centered preaching is happening for the life of the church, but also for the mentoring of the rest. Then also to thank God, because one of the encouragement I have at KBC is that they are young people that are coming alongside. Like these 2 Sundays when I'm not going to be there, there is somebody whom I know I'm interested with, because he's been working alongside that. And then also pray for the resources, especially in the area of translation, because the translation, we need the time, but also to have the people that will be able to put the time into it to translate exactly what the materials are, because especially the major language groups that Uganda, we have more than 50 language groups, but at least they are like 4 major ones. So pray that the people there will be a way for us we can supervise proper translation of the materials into the people's heart tongues. Yeah. And
laptops to go with that. Laptops.
Yeah, when the translator has a laptop, they are somehow able to transcribe over the English, and the work goes easily. Yeah.
Joster, do you want to add any thoughts for prayer so that we can take away with us and pray about specifically for you and the situation in Malawi?
I want you to join us in prayers, especially for God to raise a number of teachers with sound doctrines to help us as our catchment area is very big, whereby I cannot be present at every place in Malawi, Zambia, and Mozambique. So I'm asking the Lord if he can raise other people to help me with teaching while I'm not there. And I'm also asking you to join us in prayer that whatever we are doing is successful. God should be with us as we should be traveling up and down, because almost each and every month I have to make a long trip. So it needs strong health. So and also spiritual understanding, because we work with people of different calibers, especially those ones with low education. They need to be handled carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be praying about those things in a moment, but let me just say, were there any thoughts or questions that may have ignited in your minds that you want to ask either Emmanuel or Joster? Yes, Peter. Can I ask you a question? Of course. You mentioned your AI translation tool. Yes. How does this work? How can one use AI for a quick translation to vernacular? So thank you. That's a good question. So let me give you an idea of what's happening now. I had a conversation with the AI team from Megavoice, who work together with SIL, who's, I suppose, the American version of Wycliffe. And they have some incredible technology. All that they require is the PDF or Word copy of the book. Then they will make some minor adjustments to the Bible references so it's more spelled out as opposed to how you might find it in a book. It's then fed into a system and it produces I wish that I'd had a means of playing. I've got it on my phone, but I wish I had a means of playing it for you, because it sounds like somebody. It doesn't sound like a computer. It sounds like somebody who is a natural Chichewa speaking person. And the process from the meeting that I had with them at the beginning of this week, it will be ready by the beginning of next week. It's done and dusted. Now, my vision, although the chairman of the trustees is here, so I better be careful what I say. But my vision is that perhaps by the middle of the year, we will have at least 6 of these books. Each one of them needs to be paid for. So the cost to translate a book of 140 pages is about, and I should say the cost to narrate it is around $1,200. But then you land up with the complete product. It's done, it's yours, it belongs to you. I'm hoping that by the middle of the year, we will have had 6 of our books, so that by the next time we go to Malawi, and by the way, I should just say, Emmanuel, this is our pilot project, so we're coming for you, brother. We're coming. So by the middle of the year, we will have 6 of these. And then when I return in September for the next step, I will be taking these 6 along with some other titles on the little Megavoice devices. These Megavoice devices are mini MP3 players that have a little solar power battery that won't require any charging by electricity, and then we can distribute these among the pastors that we're with. Does that answer perhaps far more than you wanted? But I'm excited about it. So, anything else you want to ask? Did I miss? Yes, my brother.
My question is really to Joster. Joster, we're all aware that you make these daring journeys into Mozambique, and you start with a car, and then you go by dugout canoe, and then you go by a bicycle, and then you lie on various floors for the rest of the journey. So my question is, could you add to our statistics, how many times do you think you have nearly died?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I did not tackle that area. Not all areas where I teach are passable. There are some we can't reach there with a car. The only alternative is to keep our car at the police station and start with either a pushing bike or a pushing bike. And when we reach the river, we cross with canoes to the other side of the road, to the other side of the river bank, where we hire a pushing bike with our books on them, and then we start off to the centers. So it's not always that we can reach every place with a car. We go where there are people, in brief. So we don't only depend on the car, but in most of the places we use the car. Wherever there is no car, we have to use what the local people are using.
Now, Joster, you haven't answered the other part of the question. How many times have you nearly died?
We have met a number of challenges. Yeah. But still, the Lord has been with us. Because I remember there are instances, especially in Mozambique. One time I was driving fast to reach the border at the right time. So the police then stopped us. They asked me to produce the documents for the car. I presented it to them. Then he said, no, we wanted the fire extinguisher. Then I told him that, no, in Malawi, small cars, they don't need a fire extinguisher. They said, no, this is Mozambique, you have broken our laws. Then I knew that they wanted money. So I took 2,000 kwacha, I gave him, said no. Then I asked my friend, could you please help if ever you have got some money? Then he gave me 2,000 plus what I had, 4,000, then he received. But at a distance, there were some senior police officers who saw what was happening. They asked me to come out of the car, and the policeman who took bribe from us. We entered the office, then they started shouting at him that what he was doing was wrong because he was oppressing innocent Malawians. You can see how God was protecting us. To an extent that they asked the police officer to give back our money and told us that they are going to punish him. That was the work of the Lord. You see, just first the police punishing their fellow policemen for mistreating us. And there are also some instances whereby we have been sleeping on the Lord, as I've said. But still the Lord has been protecting us. Because this has happened several times. So that's how the Lord has been protecting us and has saved us from different death.
Any other questions? All right. Well, it is 1:45. I'm going to ask or invite maybe 2 or 3 people, if you wouldn't just stand and commit these dear brothers to the Lord and the work that they're doing in their respective countries, and then we'll break for a time of tea, and I think there's probably some cake left too.